Elias tightened the straps of his worn utility belt and glanced over the viewport of the starship. Outside, the interstellar trade hub shimmered against the black canvas of space. Ships of every shape and size drifted, docked, or raced past one another, leaving trails of light like ribbons in the void. The hub was alive with movement, voices, and the occasional distant hum of energy engines. To any newcomer, it would seem chaotic, but to Elias, it was a familiar rhythm, a place where opportunities and risks existed in equal measure. He had just returned from a mission that had tested every skill he had. Retrieving star matter from an unstable asteroid field was not for the faint of heart. The crystalline fragments of the asteroids glinted like tiny suns, but a single misstep could shatter the delicate balance and end a mission before it began. Elias had succeeded, but success had come at the cost of exhaustion, a few minor injuries, and an unshakable awareness of his own mortality. As the ship docked in one of the hub's quieter bays, Elias leaned against the console, letting out a long sigh. The air smelled faintly of ozone and recycled metal, a scent he had grown used to over years of space travel. Despite the fatigue, excitement stirred inside him. The mission's completion meant more than reputation or credits. It meant a meeting with someone he had only heard of in whispered conversations among traders and explorers. Liara. She was an alien diplomat, known not only for her intelligence but for her fairness. Her reputation was legendary among those who navigated the hub's tangled alliances. Some called her mysterious. Others spoke of her as a guide, a being who offered insight and perspective to those who sought it. Elias had never met her, but he had glimpsed her once, briefly, through the shimmering force field of her private docking station. Even from a distance, there was something magnetic about her presence. Now, the thought of meeting her in person made his pulse quicken. It wasn't fear, it was anticipation. He had learned long ago that Liara's kind did not give rewards lightly. If she had requested his presence, it meant his mission had impressed her. And if it had impressed her, well, that alone was worth every risk he had taken out in the asteroid field. Elias left his ship and walked down the ramp, stepping into the hub. The corridor lights reflected off his polished boots, casting soft glows on the smooth metal walls. Around him, beings of various shapes and sizes moved with purpose. Some floated, others walked or ran. A few stopped to nod at him, recognizing the uniform of the trade guild he represented. He returned nods, keeping his eyes forward. Liara's chamber was at the end of a narrow hallway, secured by a field that shimmered like liquid light. Elias approached cautiously, aware that the slightest hesitation could be misinterpreted. He pressed a hand to the panel beside the field. "Elias Varick," said a calm voice behind the field, almost musical in tone. "Welcome." The field dissolved, revealing Liara herself. She stepped forward gracefully. Her form was humanoid, but subtly different. Her skin shimmered faintly, like the surface of a calm lake under starlight, and her eyes reflected a depth that seemed to see beyond the immediate. Her hands, delicate and elongated, gestured toward a seat, but Elias remained standing. "I thank you for seeing me," Elias said, trying to steady his voice. "I wasn't expecting this." "You prepared well," Liara replied, her tone soft but confident. "You faced the asteroids not for yourself, but for the knowledge of what lay beyond them. That is a rare quality." Elias felt a flush of pride. Few humans were capable of working with the precision and patience required for his recent mission. Most would have panicked at the first sign of danger, but he had stayed calm, calculated every move, and, most importantly, trusted his instincts. It was a skill he had honed over years, and yet, hearing acknowledgement from Liara made it feel brand new. She gestured for him to follow. "Come," she said. "The reward awaits." They moved through a corridor that seemed alive with light. Walls were transparent in sections, showing glimpses of the hub below a network of trade stations, docking bays, and floating gardens that glowed faintly. Elias felt a sense of wonder as he walked beside Liara. This was not just a hub. It was a testament to what intelligent beings could create when curiosity and cooperation guided them. Finally, they entered a circular chamber. At its center, floating above a pedestal of transparent material, was a small object. It pulsed softly, like it had a heartbeat of its own. Elias stepped closer, instinctively reaching out, but stopped himself. He had learned long ago that gifts of this nature were never simply taken, they were earned. Liara watched him closely. "It is yours," she said. "But understand this. It is not merely a reward for what you have done. It is an opportunity." Elias studied the artifact. It was small, crystalline, and radiated light in hues he could not name. When he moved his hand near it, the light seemed to respond, swirling around his fingers like water. He could feel a faint energy, not threatening, but insistent, as if it wanted to guide him. What does it do?" he asked. Liara smiled, a subtle curl of her lips. "That is for you to discover. It will show you possibilities, choices, and paths. Some you have seen before, others you have yet to imagine. Treat it wisely." Elias nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He had been rewarded, yes, but not in the way he expected. This was not simply credits or a title. It was knowledge, freedom, and perhaps the power to shape his own future. Then, almost as an afterthought, Liara stepped closer and lowered her voice. "I wish you belonged to no one." Elias froze. The words were gentle, almost like a whisper carried on wind. Yet they struck him deeply, leaving him unsettled and curious at the same time. Belong to no one? It was a statement he had never considered. Most humans, especially those in his line of work, were always accountable to guilds, to clients, to governments. To belong to no one was liberation. He looked at Liara, searching for clarification, but her expression remained calm, almost serene. She did not explain further. Instead, she gestured toward the artifact again. "Begin your journey," she said. "And remember, this is yours, in every sense. Choose wisely." And once he choose wisely, Elias reached out, and as his fingers touched the surface of the artifact, a warmth spread through his hand, up his arm, and into his chest. The light responded to his presence, swirling faster, brighter. For a moment, he felt as if he were no longer in the chamber, but drifting through the stars themselves, seeing possibilities stretching across the galaxy, countless paths branching like trees of light. When the vision faded, he was back in the chamber. His heart raced. His mind was alive with thoughts, questions, and a profound sense of freedom. He realized then that this reward was unlike any other he had received. It was not a key to power, not a trophy of success, it was a key to himself. Liara studied him, as if reading his thoughts. "Do not fear the paths you choose," she said softly. "Fear only the choice not made." Elias took a deep breath, finally letting himself sit. The artifact floated before him, humming softly, almost like it had a pulse that matched his own. He could feel its energy, and with it, the weight of potential. For hours, they remained in silence. Elias explored the artifact, testing its responses, feeling the pull of paths not yet taken. Liara watched from across the chamber, her presence reassuring but unobtrusive. It was the first time Elias had felt truly understood, even by an alien whose life and perspective were so different from his own. Eventually, the hum of the hub called him back to reality. He knew he could not linger forever in this chamber of possibilities. Rising, he faced Liara once more. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady but filled with awe. "I don't fully understand it yet, but I will." Liara inclined her head. "Understanding will come. What matters now is that you are free to choose, and that you know the power lies within you, not in anyone else's claim over you." Elias nodded, gripping the artifact gently. The words she had spoken, the wish for him to belong to no one, lingered in his mind. It was a promise, a challenge, and an invitation, all at once. As he left the chamber, stepping back into the hum and chaos of the hub, he felt lighter than he had in years. For the first time, the galaxy did not feel like a place of contracts, obligations, and survival. It felt like a canvas, waiting for him to leave his mark. And somewhere deep in his chest, a spark of excitement grew. A new journey had begun. Elias left the trade hub behind. The artifact safely secured in a small compartment of his ship, the hum of the engines and the gentle vibration beneath his feet usually brought comfort. But today his mind raced with questions and possibilities. The words Liara had spoken, "I wish you belong to no one," kept repeating in his head. He had heard them countless times in his life, whispered by friends, mentors, even rivals. But never with the same weight, the same clarity, or the same sense of possibility. Now, as the stars streamed past the ship's viewport, he realized he was beginning a journey not of miles, but of self-discovery. The artifact was more than a reward. It was a mirror, a guide, and perhaps even a companion in a journey he had not known he was ready for. Liara's instructions had been simple. Take the artifact to her sanctuary. She had not explained where it was, only that he would know when he arrived. Elias had expected a distant planet, hidden within a system, untouched by the chaos of trade and diplomacy. What he did not expect was the way the stars seemed to change around him as he neared the coordinates. At first, it was subtle. The light from distant suns appeared brighter, sharper, almost as if someone had polished the lens of the universe itself. Then, he noticed the space between the stars was filled with a faint shimmer, like a curtain of flowing energy that danced and pulsed in patterns only visible to the eye. The artifact vibrated gently in his hand, responding to the currents he could not yet understand. When his ship touched down on the surface, Elias could hardly believe what he saw. The planet was not made of ordinary rock and soil. Its surface glowed faintly, like moonlight captured in crystal, and towering crystalline formations rose from the ground, like the spires of a cathedral. Between them floated orbs of light, some large, some small, that pulsed and moved like living stars. Wind swept across the crystalline landscape, carrying a soft, musical hum that seemed to resonate with the artifact in his hand. He stepped out of the ship, the crystalline ground crunching softly beneath his boots. The air was surprisingly breathable, carrying a faint sweetness that reminded him of spring rain. Ahead, standing among the spires, was Liara. She was as graceful as ever, her shimmering skin reflecting the light in colors Elias had no names for, but colors that made him feel calm and awake at the same time. "Welcome," she said, her voice blending with the hum of the wind. "This is the sanctuary. Here, you will learn what the reward truly is." Elias approached cautiously, his eyes drawn to the floating orbs of light. They hovered near the spires and seemed to shift in response to his movements, following him like attentive guides. The artifact hummed softly in his hand, and for the first time, he noticed that its glow had changed. Instead of a single pulse, it now radiated in complex patterns, almost like it was communicating. Liara gestured toward a circular platform at the center of the sanctuary. "Sit," she said. "The artifact responds to your intention. It can show you the paths available to you, but only if you are honest with yourself about what you want and who you are." Elias lowered himself onto the platform. The crystalline floor was smooth but warm, vibrating faintly beneath him. He held the artifact carefully, feeling the energy it radiated, and for the first time, he closed his eyes. Images appeared behind his eyelids. At first, they were faint, flashes of familiar places, friends he had lost contact with, missions he had completed. Then the images grew sharper, revealing possibilities he had never considered. He saw himself traveling to distant galaxies, discovering civilizations unknown to humans, building alliances, and learning from beings whose minds operated in ways humans could barely comprehend. But there were other visions too. He saw himself trapped in routines, obligated to guilds and governments, performing tasks that drained his curiosity and spirit. These visions pulsed in gray tones, heavy and oppressive, contrasting sharply with the vibrant colors of freedom and discovery. Elias opened his eyes. The artifact pulsed gently, almost as if encouraging him to reflect. "It's showing me possibilities," he murmured. "Both the ones I've already walked and the ones I haven't." Liara nodded. "Yes. The reward is not the artifact itself, but the freedom to choose. Many beings receive gifts, but few understand the power of choice. That is what I wish for you. To belong to no one, to see every path, and to decide your own destiny." Elias thought about his life so far. Every mission had rules, every success measured against someone else's expectations. Even the guilds and governments he served were strict, offering structure at the cost of autonomy. The idea of complete freedom was intoxicating and frightening. "How do I know I'll make the right choices?" he asked. "What if I choose poorly?" Liara smiled, a serene expression that seemed to contain both patience and understanding. "There is no wrong choice, only choices unexamined. The artifact will guide you, but it cannot decide for you. You must listen to yourself, not to fear, not to obligation, not to pride. Listen to who you truly are." Elias held the artifact closer, feeling a warmth that was almost comforting, like the embrace of a friend. He realized that in all his years of exploration, he had never truly asked himself what he wanted. He had acted on instinct, on duty, on the expectations of others, but rarely on his own curiosity or desire. For the next hours, or perhaps it was days, time flowed strangely in the sanctuary. Elias experimented with the artifact. He thought of places he wanted to visit, civilizations he wanted to understand, technologies he wanted to learn. Each thought caused the artifact to glow in new patterns, revealing small visions, possibilities, and insights. He discovered that it responded not just to conscious thought, but to emotion and intention. When he felt fear, the visions were cloudy and indistinct. When he felt hope or curiosity, the visions became vivid, almost tangible. The artifact was teaching him more than possibilities. It was teaching him to understand himself. One evening, as the twin moons of the planet reflected off the crystalline spires, Elias found Liara seated nearby, observing him. She had been silent for hours, letting him explore, guiding only when necessary. "You are learning quickly," she said. "But remember, understanding yourself is only the first step. The next is understanding how you relate to others and to the universe." Elias looked at her, puzzled. "I thought this was about me, about my freedom." "And it is," Liara replied. "But freedom without understanding, connection is empty. You can choose your path, but every path exists among others. Even independence is a kind of relationship with life, with possibility, and with those you encounter." Her words resonated in him. He realized that Liara was teaching him not just about choice, but about responsibility, the responsibility of freedom. To belong to no one did not mean isolation. It meant being fully aware of one's potential and the impact of one's decisions. The next morning, Elias decided to test the artifact further. He concentrated, imagining a path of exploration that took him far beyond the known galaxy. The artifact pulsed, and he felt a sudden pull, as if the very fabric of space was guiding him. He saw stars and nebulae he had never known, planets teeming with life, and civilizations that communicated through thought, music, or energy. The experience was exhilarating. His mind raced with questions, ideas, and possibilities. He realized that the universe was far larger, more intricate, and more alive than he had ever imagined. And yet, despite the vastness, he felt a profound sense of connection. Not to any government, guild, or authority, but to life itself. Liara approached him quietly. "Do you see now?" she asked. "The reward is not the artifact, not the visions. It is the ability to understand yourself, to choose freely, and to explore without constraint. This is what it means to belong to no one." Elias nodded slowly. He felt a new sense of clarity and determination. He understood now that his previous missions, as challenging as they had been, had only prepared him for this moment. The artifact was a tool, but the real power lay in his ability to act, to choose, and to learn. Over the next days, he practiced, exploring different paths, testing decisions, and observing the responses of the artifact. Each experience taught him more about himself and about the universe. He discovered patience he did not know he possessed, creativity in problem-solving, and the joy of learning purely for the sake of understanding. Liara watched, offering guidance when necessary, but never imposing her will. She remained a steady presence, a reminder that true mentorship was not about control, but about support and insight. By the time Elias prepared to leave the sanctuary, he felt transformed. The artifact was still with him, glowing softly, a companion in the journey that lay ahead. But more importantly, he carried within himself a newfound understanding of freedom, choice, and connection. As he boarded his ship, ready to venture into the galaxy once more, he looked back at Liara. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." Liara smiled, her eyes reflecting the light of the crystalline spires. "Go," she said, "explore, learn, and live. And remember, you belong to no one, but you are connected to everything. That is the true reward." Elias felt a thrill of excitement as his ship lifted off. The stars awaited, full of possibilities, and he was ready to meet them not as a servant of duty, but as a free human, guided by curiosity, courage, and understanding. The journey had only begun. Elias sat in the cockpit of his ship, watching stars stretch into streaks of light as he navigated beyond the edges of the known systems. The artifact rested on the console beside him, glowing softly, a reminder of everything Liara had taught him. The sanctuary and its crystalline spires were now far behind, but their lessons lingered in his mind. He understood the universe differently now, not just as a place to explore, but as a vast network of possibilities, each choice echoing across the galaxy. His first destination was unplanned. He followed the artifact's subtle pull, allowing it to guide him to systems he had never charted. Each planet, each civilization, presented a new opportunity to learn and grow. Unlike his previous missions, he was not bound by contracts, guilds, or expectations. He was free to act, to observe, and to decide his own path. On a small, oceanic world, Elias marveled at the local life. Massive creatures swam beneath turquoise waters, their scales reflecting sunlight in dazzling patterns. Intelligent beings lived in floating cities above the waves, their architecture delicate and organic, shaped by wind and water rather than stone and metal. They welcomed him with curiosity and caution, observing his human form with fascination. Elias approached slowly, careful not to alarm them. He communicated through gestures and expressions, following the lessons Liara had taught him about patience and understanding. Soon, the beings responded with music and light, forming patterns that conveyed ideas, questions, and answers. Elias realized that understanding did not always require words. It required empathy and attention. The artifact pulsed as he interacted with the beings, resonating with the energy of their communication. He felt a deep connection, not of ownership or control, but of shared curiosity and respect. For the first time, he understood the depth of Liara's words. Belonging to no one did not mean isolation. It meant engaging with life fully, freely, and intentionally. Over the next few cycles, Elias traveled from planet to planet, each world offering new lessons. He learned the importance of observation, patience, and creativity. On a desert world of shifting sands, he discovered civilizations that communicated through colors and patterns rather than speech. On a moon orbiting a gas giant, he met beings who moved in 3 dimensions, perceiving the universe in ways humans could barely comprehend. Each encounter challenged his assumptions, expanded his understanding, and reminded him that human ingenuity was not limited by form, species, or habit. Through it all, the artifact remained his guide. It did not dictate his choices but offered insight, responding to his intentions and curiosity. When he hesitated or feared the unknown, the artifact's glow would dim, reminding him to focus, reflect, and choose deliberately. When he acted with confidence, creativity, or empathy, it shone brightly, affirming his decisions and showing new paths. One day, while navigating a star system filled with glowing nebulae, Elias encountered a phenomenon unlike anything he had seen before. A massive structure drifted through space, shaped like a spiral galaxy but clearly artificial. It radiated energy that interacted with the artifact, causing it to vibrate and glow in complex patterns. Elias realized instinctively that this structure was ancient, created by a civilization that had long since vanished. Curiosity surged within him. He approached carefully, scanning the structure for hazards. As he entered its vast interior, he discovered a library of energy holographic archives of knowledge preserved in crystalline matrices. The data pulsed with light, forming images, languages, and experiences of beings who had once lived across countless worlds. Elias spent cycles exploring the archives. He absorbed knowledge about technologies, philosophies, and art from civilizations that had mastered space travel, communication, and cooperation. He marveled at their achievements and learned from their mistakes. The experience was overwhelming, but it was also exhilarating. For the first time, he felt the full scope of human potential. The ability to observe, understand, and innovate. As he studied, the artifact pulsed with a warmth that felt like encouragement. Elias realized that the reward Liara had given him was not only freedom, it was preparation. It had trained him to understand the universe, to act responsibly, and to recognize the importance of curiosity, empathy, and courage. He understood now that human ingenuity, creativity, and resilience were gifts, not tied to any guild, contract, or expectation. They were qualities that could flourish anywhere, in any context, when nurtured by choice and intention. Weeks passed. Elias became adept at navigating complex systems, understanding alien societies, and applying knowledge creatively. He solved problems, helped communities share resources, and discovered new methods of energy production, communication, and transportation. Each success strengthened his confidence, and each challenge refined his approach. He felt the satisfaction of progress without the pressure of obligation. One evening, while resting on the observation deck of his ship, Elias reflected on the journey so far. The stars outside seemed closer now. Not distant points of light, but destinations filled with potential. He realized that Liara's gift had done more than grant him freedom, it had awakened a deeper purpose. To belong to no one was to be fully human, to explore and grow, to innovate and inspire, and to share knowledge without claiming ownership. The artifact pulsed gently, and Elias smiled. He had come to understand its guidance. The visions it provided were not just for insight, they were invitations to challenge himself, to embrace uncertainty, and to act with courage. He had learned that the universe was vast, but human potential was equally vast when curiosity and empathy were applied. As he prepared to leave the nebula system, a new thought occurred to him. The artifact had taught him to choose, but it had also shown him the value of mentorship. Liara had not given him answers, she had given him the tools to find them. He realized that one day, he might do the same for others, guiding them without imposing control, helping them discover their own strengths and potential. His next journey took him to a system dominated by a planet covered in dense forests of bioluminescent plants. The inhabitants were shy but intelligent, communicating through gentle vibrations in the ground. Elias approached slowly, listening and observing. He introduced himself with gestures and patterns, and soon they responded, sharing their knowledge of the forest and its hidden resources. Elias marveled at their ingenuity. They had adapted to a world that seemed hostile to many species, yet they thrived through cooperation, observation, and creativity. He realized that intelligence was not limited to humans or humanoids. It was a quality that emerged wherever curiosity and problem-solving were nurtured. As he spent more time with the forest civilization, Elias shared some of his knowledge. He demonstrated methods for energy conservation, navigation, and communication. The inhabitants adapted quickly, integrating his ideas into their systems while teaching him in return. The experience was a perfect exchange, free, respectful, and mutually enriching. It was then that Elias truly understood Liara's words. To belong to no one was to act without coercion or expectation. But it also meant engaging fully, contributing meaningfully, and learning continuously. He could be independent and connected at the same time, using his freedom to enhance both his own understanding and the lives of others. Months passed, and Elias's journeys took him farther than he had ever imagined. He mapped unknown regions of space, discovered civilizations previously hidden, and learned technologies that challenged human comprehension. He encountered beings whose ways of thinking, perceiving, and communicating were so different that he initially struggled to understand them. Yet with patience and curiosity, he bridged the gaps, learning new ways of thinking and seeing the universe. The artifact remained his guide, a constant reminder of freedom and possibility. Its glow was no longer intimidating or overwhelming, it was familiar, comforting, and inspiring. It reflected his growth, pulsing in sync with his confidence, understanding, and empathy. One day, as Elias rested above a planet of swirling oceans and floating islands, he reflected on the journey he had taken since meeting Liara. He realized that he had changed profoundly. He no longer measured his life by missions completed, credits earned, or obligations fulfilled. Instead, he measured it by growth, understanding, and the connections he formed along the way. He had become not just an explorer of space, but an explorer of life itself. He thought of Liara and her words once more. "I wish you belonged to no one." At first, he had not fully understood their depth. Now, he saw them for what they truly were: a gift, a philosophy, and a challenge. To belong to no one was to embrace freedom responsibly, to engage with life fully, and to act with both curiosity and empathy. It was not an escape from the universe, it was a deeper integration with it. Elias smiled and looked at the stars. His journey would continue indefinitely, guided by curiosity, courage, and the artifact's gentle wisdom. He understood now that human potential was boundless when freedom, choice, and understanding were combined. He carried Liara's lessons within him, ready to face whatever the universe presented with confidence, creativity, and compassion. The galaxy stretched before him, vast, complex, and full of possibility. And for the first time, Elias felt completely at home within it, not bound by obligations, not limited by expectations, but free to explore, learn, and grow. He belonged to no one, yet he was connected to everything. And in that freedom, he discovered the greatest reward of all: the limitless potential of being fully, truly human.